Hi there. My name is Val Day, and I am the artistic director of 59E59 Theaters. Um, Today is day 53 million of the shutdown that we are experiencing here in the most of the United States. I guess a few states are starting to open up again, but we're not here in New York. So I am speaking to you today. Primary Stages has asked me to give a little bit of a talk about my career um, in the biz, the theater biz, how I got started, and how I ended up working in the job that I currently have. So let's see, how long have I been doing theater? I've been working in and around the theater for at least 45 years or so. I started out when I was just a wee babe, interested in dialogue. Yeah, I had an assignment when I was before high school. So I don't know, probably fifth to sixth grade, somewhere very, very young. I had a really cool teacher who said that we could turn in our paper any way that we wanted. Write it. We could do a sculpture. We could do a painting. We could. I don't think write a play was one of the suggestions, but for whatever reason, I decided to do my presentation, which was, from what I remember, I wish I had a copy of this. Believe me, I do. From what I remember, it was social studies course, and we were studying Russia and Lenin and Stalin, and so I wrote a play about Lenin and Stalin, and them talking about their political beliefs and Russia. So I think I would say that might say that I got my start wanting to be a playwright. I haven't written very many plays. That was probably one of three or four total that I wrote in my entire life. Um, I wasn't very good at it, to be honest. I didn't have a natural talent for writing, but I did love to read. I was always immersed in a book, usually with a strong female protagonist. I have to be honest, I devoured those Nancy Drew books. I did not want to go out and play at recess. I just wanted to read. I was into the reading, and I uh, sort of parlayed that into getting involved in theater I think I started doing some acting, and very quickly realized that bored me to tears. I really loved rehearsing, and then the show would open, and they expected me to do it the same way every night, and that was just not in the cards. Um, so I just thought, wow, I like rehearsing. I want to direct the plays. I want to pick the plays. I want to pick better plays. I was sure that I would be able to pick better plays and then direct the heck out of them. So I did that for. I was at that time, so I finished high school. I was in Florida, in Tampa, Florida, and I started up a site-specific theater company. I had met very briefly. I'd been on a trip to New York. I'd met Anne Bogart, and she was doing site specific theater. And I thought, well, that's smart. You don't have to even rent a space. You could just go in a park and make a play. So it was much harder than I thought it was going to be. But I did three or four site specific plays, and then moved my company into various different theater spaces in Florida. And so I produced and directed plays at the same time that I did that. Because one job wasn't enough, I also opened a bookstore with a few other ladies. And that was in the late 80s and into the early 90s that I was very, very passionate about gathering people together to either see theater or to come to my bookstore for poetry readings and to I had we had authors come and do readings of their books, and I mean, it was just my entire life was all about bringing people together to talk about the the work, to express their reactions, to for community gatherings. Was a big was a big passion for me. It remains a big passion for me, and I'll get to that in a minute. It's is very much one of the questions that I was asked for this interview is has my if my career were a drawing, would it be a graph? Would it be um, a pie chart? Would it, what would it look like? And circle. It's definitely it's been a circle for me anyway. So I wrapped up my Tampa days when I decided that although I really wanted to move to New York, I was a little nervous about the translation and just all, moving from Florida after having lived in Florida for 17 years, moving to New York, never having, been a New Yorker, it just seemed crazy. Like, how could I possibly do that? So I decided I'll go get my master's degree, and I got that from UCSD in San Diego. I got my MFA. Les Waters was the new head of the program when I started, and uh, the thread of this talk is through line, I should say, that I really want to point out for anyone who might not already know this, is that it's it's all about the people. The theater people are magical and just so different than any other. The theater friends that I have from when I was in Tampa to the theater friends that and colleagues and coworkers that I had from when I was in grad school, uh, uh, I'm still close with them. I mean, it's like we can pick up the phone. It will be 5 years since we've spoken, and I'll shoot an email or hop on the phone with them, and it's just like we're just right into it. We're just on the same page. Very simpatico. Um, a very passionate group of people willing to go to the hospital to make magic happen on stage. So I had a wonderful time. I just felt so excited when I got to UCSD, and I got to spend all day talking about theater. I didn't have to have a day job. I got to hang around with people who intended to make theater their career. It was just going to be, this is what they were going to do. And we all had really big hopes and dreams and were very excited. I remember all of us gathering to watch the Tony Awards. It was probably I think it was my second, during my second year at UCSD when uh, Julie Taymor won a Tony Award for Lion King, and we were just screaming our heads off that the way that she worked and the style of the artistry, and it just said it, and that a woman would win the Tony. It was just so exciting for all of us, and we were all wondering when we were going to be getting our Tony Awards. This is very yeah, very uplifting moment, and there were many of those in grad school. Some of the other people who I met in grad school, Annie Kaufman, and Steve Cosson were in the year behind me, and they went on to form the Civilians Theater Company together. They did so many amazing projects with the company, and Steve continues on with that. And Annie is now one of the artistic directors at Encores, and Melanie Marnich, a playwright in the program, who is a showrunner now for film and television, after having a wonderful career as a playwright. So many wonderful people. So I I finally was brave enough to move to New York after I got my master's degree. And it was really tough. I'm not going to lie. New York is, as any of you that are watching this or that are based in New York, it's kind of a trial by fire kind of situation. Everyone thinks they have to go to New York if you're doing theater. It's it's where it all happens. It's the center of the universe for theater. It's also it's one of the most difficult places to succeed. And if you can, scratch a little place to to make your nest and to make your way, it's very difficult, incredibly competitive. It's the cream of the crop, and those that are able to rise to the top and continue actually making theater are very it's a very few, it's a very rare breed of people. I'm very fortunate to know quite a few of them, even though I ended up segueing out of the directing profession and into representing directors and playwrights as a talent agent. I worked for about 12 years at William Morris, and after that, for about 4.5, 5 years at ICM Partners. And during that time, I did a lot of work with what were considered to be the weirder young emerging voices. I mean, I never thought they were weird. I'm really drawn to dialogue. One of the dialogue creates that creates an entire world. I liked to, when I was reading plays, I used to cover up the characters' names with my hand and just read the dialogue. And if I knew who was saying what, without seeing the character's name, then I knew that was a play I was interested in. I've never been drawn to plays that are heavy on the stage directions or that have a lot of, um, poetry on the first page, quotes, and I mean, just get to it. Write the dialogue. That's what I'm interested. Once I'm starting to read the dialogue, then I know who the person is, what it is that they want, how it is that they're going to get it, what the conflict is. Um, so that's, let's see, where am I in the story of Valdez's life? I worked, yes, so I did the talent agent thing and signed, one of the things that I did as an agent that was unusual is that I took home slush pile scripts. We got unsolicited scripts, and most agents just put them in envelopes. And in those days, people didn't submit things digitally. And so most agents would just have their assistants mail them back with a form letter saying, sorry, we do not accept unsolicited scripts. But I thought, what if, I don't know, ever the hopeful one, what if there's a Eugene O'Neill, or I was looking for the next big thing. And I thought, well, I'm not going to find that. That's not going to come knocking on my door. I'm going to actually have to physically, mentally chase after that. And I did that by reading the slush pile. And it was cool. It's rough. There were some really bad things, as there will be in a slush pile. But there were some really great moments. Those were the moments that I really, in looking back, we don't know when you're about to strike gold. And I remember one night I was sitting in a local pub. It was probably after 9 o'clock at night. I used to go and order a glass of white wine and feel sorry for myself and hit the slush pile. I'd bring 5 scripts with me, and over the course of an hour, I would usually read 5 or 6 pages of all of them and think, well, nothing. And well, I do remember this one night when I came across Liz Merriweather's play, Mistakes Madeline Made. Yep, Liz Merriweather, who went on to create the new girl for Fox. She is an incredibly talented writer still, but at that point I think she was finishing up undergrad at Yale, and one of her scripts ended up in my slush pile, and I was reading it, and my heart started pounding. I was probably only 2 pages in, and I just thought, "What the heck is this?" It was so funny, and really very dark, and it just had all the elements, and it was a very strange central female character and a very strange world. And yeah, Liz was, I've represented a lot of wonderful writers and directors, and Liz was no exception. I can certainly say that my first meeting with her was one I didn't want to end. She is as interesting in person as she is on the page, which isn't always true of writers. Sometimes they're just great at writing and not so great at talking. But so over my time as an agent, I started realizing that I had a particular skill because I love television so much. And this was the beginning of the golden era of television, when 6 Feet Under had just started on HBO, and HBO was starting to work with a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of, but they were definitely realizing the value of a good playwright. And that is what I started to do. I started to cross playwrights over into television, and which really, I gotta tell you, it was really fun, because they could be edgy and strange and write crazy dialogue and maybe not be super strong on plot and story, but the showrunners didn't care, because they needed somebody to really write the voice of a certain perspective of a character. And I was great at picking writers who wrote very specific and um, interesting dialogue from specific points of view with very strong voices. And I also tended to like to sign writers that were really fun to speak to, which we in the business call being good in the room. So that just all translated into me having a lot of clients that were perfect, that were at that, a lot. Some of them were young and some of them were not quite so young. I think that um, Melanie was 45 when she got her first TV job. And I was told by other agents in the TV department um, that a 45-year-old woman would never be able to cross over. Wrong. That was actually, it's kind of funny. Any women who are watching this, that was a 45-year-old female TV agent that told me that. Didn't even want to meet with Melanie. I said, I was trying to find somebody in the TV department to sit down with Melanie. I said, she's hilarious. She's so amazing in person. She's got a huge generosity of spirit. She's delightful. She, whatever it means, you would not have ever known that Melanie was 45. Whatever, what's that even mean? She was very young at heart, let's put it that way. I did finally secure a meeting for her, and she, as I expected, she blew everyone in the room away, because, theater people they're just social creatures, and the TV people weren't really expecting somebody to be such a great writer and to be so hardworking and to be so grateful to be making money, because theater people, we work so hard for so much less money in general. This is a generalization. Some people watching this get paid a ton of money. Many do not. But I just want to say that most of the writers that I crossed over were just so happy to, with all the snacks in the room and with all the free food that they were getting, and that they could finally have health insurance and pay their bills and pay off their school loans and all that. Just and they were working on, I mean, Melanie's first show was Big Love on HBO. That's a great show. It wasn't like, she was, I don't want to say anything. She wasn't working on some tacky sitcom, let's put it that way. Most of my clients crossed over working on prestige TV, I would call it. A lot of good, cable shows, AMC, HBO, Showtime. Yeah, that was wonderful. And at the same time, they were all being produced at Soho Theater, and Playwrights Horizons. There were a couple of years where 2 or 3 of their shows would be written by my playwrights and directed by my directors. So I was there a lot. I feel like Playwrights Horizons is a bit of a second home to me in many ways. I admire their programming. We're obviously very like-minded in terms of the writers that we believe in. And the Vineyard has produced a lot of my clients' plays. Public. I was at Humana a lot. I was at the Humana Festival every year, and there were some years that should have just been the Valdez Festival. So many of my writers. So that was fun. I did the agenting thing, for a total of about 17. Gosh, time flies. 17 years I did that, and then really wanted to take a break from it. So I did. I just took classes and rested and took stock of my life, which is something that one should do at a certain age. And then I wanted to get back to work, and I started looking around, and I noticed that this theater that I really didn't, despite having lived in Manhattan for over 20 years, I had been to 59 theaters, but I didn't really, I don't really think I knew what their mission was. I had a couple of clients, mostly directors, who directed plays there. And I noticed that they'd put out a notice that they were looking for a new artistic director. And I'd been an artistic director before for my own theater, but I'd never gotten paid to be an artistic director. And I didn't really, I had it on my resume, kind of, but it certainly, it wasn't, it made total sense to me once I started looking at what 59 does and what the job description for the position was. I realized, oh, well, this is perfect for me. This is exactly what I do. I find great plays. That's what I've been doing for ever since I can remember, from when I was a director and then from when I was an agent. So basically the job description was to advocate for theater companies in the way that I'd been advocating for artists for the last 15, 18 years. And I thought, oh, that's perfect. Wow, I'll probably never get it. I put together, my materials and sent them off and thought I'd never hear from them, because, it's not something you hear about very often, is, a talent agent becoming an artistic director of a theater. But it happened. They called me. I had a really wonderful interview. It was so illuminating to sit down and talk with Elizabeth Kleinhans, who had founded the theater, and find out what what had motivated her. She'd done so many. She's done a lot of interesting things in her life, and she still is doing a lot of interesting things. But she really had. She was very frustrated with the scene in terms of what was available for an independent producer, not for profit, to rent to do a play in the city of Manhattan. She couldn't. She was directing. She had started directing plays, and she was renting spaces, and she found them to be unsuitable. They were, in her opinion, dirty and broken, and not functioning very well, and not supportive of what she was trying to do with her art. It wasn't it didn't feel right to her. And so she made it her mission to create a space where theater companies could come and be fully supported by not only having a space that was state of the art with everything functioning and not broken, but also by, I mean, it's always all about the people. And what she did was she put together an amazing staff, and some of them are still there. We're always having turnover and finding new great people, but you will know that if you come into 59 and you're spoken to, whether it's by the box office or one of our front of house people, or whether an usher is helping you to find your seat, everyone is so nice. I mean, it's a wonderful place to work. And I have these amazing colleagues. I've really lucked out. Um, at ICM too, I had great colleagues, and a lot of those wonderful people, some of those agents are still close friends that I work with. It's the same at 59. The managing director, Brian Byrne, none of it would be happening without Brian. He's incredible. And on the other end of that, when you come to have, if you come to have a play produced at 59, to have a, to, I mean, we're a rental house, but no, we're not. We're really kind of in essence, without taking any of the credit or stepping on your toes artistically, we are a co-producer. And in that, we handle all of the press and marketing for the theater companies. They don't pay a dime for it. And we have a wonderful graphic designer and an amazing press rep. And both of those people are corralled by our director of marketing, Kirsty Gockel, who is the glue that binds. I just can't, I can't go, it's just a wonderful group of people. I'm so lucky to work with them. I look forward to seeing them. And, you know, right now during this time when we're all separated from each other, and we don't get to go have our wine Fridays or any of our normal office stuff, we check in on Zoom every morning at 10 a.m. And, you know, those Zoom calls are, I really do. At first I was so angry at Brian for setting them for 10 a.m. That's kind of early for Val Day. I'm a night owl, and 10 a.m. is, you know, that's about when I like to be making my coffee. I'm certainly not, haven't, usually haven't been up and moving around and already had my shower and done all those things by 10 o'clock. But I do these days, and I'm really grateful for it. The first few, of course, we were all hanging on for dear life because we had made the very difficult decision to shut down the theater on March 12th. And it was without a doubt the worst day uh, that I can remember. And then my 3 years as artistic director at 59 was the most difficult so many difficult decisions that we made that day. And in retrospect, I mean, we did it all right. It just it felt like we were making choices, but we really weren't. I mean, 4 days later, we would have been forced to do everything we did. So it is great that we did it on our own. But so we have our 10 a.m. check-ins every day. We always, as we have extremely good communication at 59 and 59. I am big on communication. I like open, honest communication. I don't know another word for it. It's without it, you're broken. And we are a tight knit group, and we stick together, and we have each other's backs. And we have a staff meeting with all the core managers once a week, regularly. I mean, in person when we're open, we do that once a week, but we are doing that staff meeting on Zoom. And I have found out so much more about my staff now that we are closed down than I knew about them when we were open. It would be inappropriate for me to ask things about, like, their apartment, and I don't know. These are just things that bosses don't you just don't do. But now, when you're I don't know if you've all noticed this, but when you're zooming with somebody and their partner walks in the room, or their animal jumps in their lap, and you see what kind of wallpaper they like, it's really fun. I mean, it's would I trade that to not have the pandemic? Yes, I would rather not know about the wallpaper and have a theater be open, but it is what it is. And I'm trying to grab onto whatever tiny joys there are to be had. And that is one of them, is getting to know people better, and just having the time. We're really having the time at 59 to think about, to really drill down on our mission and how we can even better help the theater companies that come. What can we do? We are a service organization. We are an operating foundation. We do not fundraise, unlike any other theater that I know of that's not for profit. We do not do any fundraising. And I believe that this pandemic has put us in a position where we will need to be doing some fundraising. But I mean, that's for us, that's a worst case scenario. And I believe we will be doing that. But hopefully at this point, we're not looking at shutting down permanently, which is, it's one of our, it's one of my greatest fears right now, that this time, of shutting down and staying home and being afraid of other people, and not being able to gather into groups, what is that going to do to theater? What is it going to do to our industry? How is it going to change us? How can we cope? Can we cope? Who's going to still be standing to do the coping when we're allowed to gather again? So these are just all questions. I don't know the answers to them, and I know no one listening to this knows the answers. But we're talking about them every day, trying to keep our chins up, and to be as hopeful as possible that there will be either a die down in the infections, or a vaccine, or some other change in the environment that will allow patrons to feel comfortable gathering. So, and when that happens, we will be ready, and we're thinking a lot about what it is that we do, and what do we do well, and how can we do even more of it. And having primary stages return to 59 is, I mean, that partnership is so exciting. That makes what's going on right now all the more frustrating, because that's been such a it's been such a work in progress to reunite our two organizations. And I mean, it hasn't been difficult at all. It's been very fulfilling and really exciting. And I know it's absolutely the right move. You know, when something feels right, it just feels right. And it definitely does. I think, I know that the audience that they have, the audience that's drawn to their programming, is the same audience that is drawn in general to congregate at 59. And so I will close this by saying that I am incredibly hopeful. It's going to be really hard not to hug everybody because we can't even shake hands. But I actually secretly not a big hugger. I've learned to be a hugger because you're not really allowed to work in theater and not hug people. It's kind of it's very expected to be a hugger. So I'm relieved that the hugging may go away. And I've never liked shaking hands, and I think maybe that will have gone out of fashion forever. And so that's great. So, I I'm thinking we should bow. And so I will end my little non-fireside wingback chair chat by saying to you, be well, stay safe. See you at the theater.